Did you know multiple sclerosis, better known as MS, affects 2.9 million people worldwide? This lifelong disease disrupts mobility and independence. Yet, despite a $27 billion market for MS treatments, most current options only focus on slowing the disease rather than protecting the body from further damage. With no cure and limited solutions, the need for innovative breakthroughs has never been more urgent. Enter Quantum BioPharma's Lucid MS. It's a groundbreaking drug that's designed to protect and repair the myelin. That's the protective layer around our nerves. Early tests have shown it has the potential to stop or even reverse nerve damage, a major problem in MS and other diseases that affect the brain and nerves. And the headline we're talking about today, Quantum Biopharma announces completion of the phase 1 clinical trial for its experimental multiple sclerosis drug. Dr. Krasinski, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, George. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you because you're the brains behind all of this. And people love seeing me and Zishan, but really, you're the brains behind all this. So before we kind of go into the results of your phase 1 and why it's so groundbreaking, all the great things that came from it, I gave some data points there, but big picture first. How big of a problem are you attempting to solve? Because you're on the front lines of this. You see this all the time.
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous problem. There's probably about 1 million people in the U.S. with multiple sclerosis, 100,000 people in Canada. And the key thing is you mentioned there are many drugs out there for MS, and they've been able to work on the inflammatory component of the disease, but people still undergo this disease progression, and that's not currently addressed with the current treatments. So that's what we're going after, and that's what we're so excited about with Lucid MS.
So you're focusing, like some other companies too, on and let me know if I'm pronouncing wrong, the myelin sheath. All right. Before we go into what you're doing there and why your approach is so novel, give everyone a layman's explanation because it's inside of all of us. What does the myelin sheath do? Why is that important to the way you and I are functioning right now in the Zoom call?
Yeah, no, this myelin sheath is a protective layer around nerve cells. So that's the part that's allowing nerve cells to communicate with each other. And in MS, that's damaged through a process called demyelination. And if that's damaged, then nerve cells can't talk to each other. And that's what leads to this progressive disability in patients with MS.
So your solution, the novel approach you guys are taking is Lucid MS, and it's described as a first-in-class drug for multiple sclerosis. So you guys are going at it from a different angle. Can you explain, again, in simple terms, what sets your treatment apart from the other ones that are currently available or George Calm MS, maybe that failed 510, because obviously people are trying to solve this for decades. How is your solution so unique and why?
Yeah. So what I can tell you is in MS, this myelin sheath is tightly wrapped around nerves. So normally tightly wrapped, and in multiple sclerosis, this sheath starts to unravel. So you can just imagine these layers and layers of myelin unraveling. And that's caused by a chemical modification to the myelin proteins. And so what's special about our drug is that we're inhibiting this unraveling. So we're inhibiting this modification to the myelin proteins that cause the unraveling. And that's why our drug is special, and why we're very excited about the potential of it to prevent disability in multiple sclerosis.
Well, what have other drug development companies in the MS space tried to do that's so different from yours? So you're trying to prevent the unraveling. What approach have they been taking? And obviously they haven't succeeded yet. So it's great to see you guys taking a novel, unique approach.
Yeah. So what I can say is the majority of drugs out there are working more on the immune system. So they're inhibiting immune responses, but not directly working to protect the myelin sheath. And that's kind of the major difference with our drug and the drugs that are out there. And I would say those drugs are effective at preventing relapses, but they don't prevent disease progression and progressive disability in patients with multiple sclerosis. So that's what we're going after with Lucid MS.
So it would be fair to say, if I understand you correctly, that the other current alternatives out there are just like almost like a stopgap, trying to temporarily solve the problem, pause the problem, whereas you're looking to completely eradicate it, going your way.
Yeah. So I think they solve part of the problem, but they might not be addressing, or they're not addressing the underlying neurodegeneration that's present in the disease. So they're just focusing on part of the problem, where we think we're going to be attacking the core problem in multiple sclerosis, which is this demyelination.
How did you guys come up with this, Doc? It's a totally different novel approach. Obviously, the human body is still a big mystery. So many things that we're still trying to solve. What was the genesis? Was it just a light bulb idea? Or was there some science in some other field, which quite often happens, that some science in some other field you see and say, hey, maybe I can apply that over here. Kind of like Ozempic. It's meant
Yeah.
for diabetics, I think, and now everyone's using for weight loss. So what was the genesis of you guys coming up with this novel approach?
Yeah, no, that's a terrific question, George. So this has been a very long-standing project, and it comes out of the lab of Dr. Lakshmi Kotra at University of Toronto. So he's been working on this project for approximately 10 or 15 years, in collaboration with another investigator, Mario Mascarello. And it was basically Mascarello coming up with this idea of MS having an underlying neurodegenerative process, um, which may be driving the disease and causing the neurodegeneration. And so what Mascarello and Lakshmi Kocher noticed was this process of citrullination, or this modification to myelin that's causing it to unravel, was present in pathological specimens from patients with multiple sclerosis. And that this idea of this modification is what led to Dr. Kotra developing inhibitors that would prevent this modification and prevent the myelin from unraveling.
Well, first of all, we all wish him Godspeed, not just as investors, but as humans, we'd love nothing more than for this problem to get solved. So let's talk about your results now, because at the end of the day, you're in that same pathway as everybody else, and now hopefully you're going to break through. Your phase 1 trial was completed with no safety concerns, right? So that's part of phase 1. But a lot of people are not familiar with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 development of drug. How important is it for any drug development company to get through the no safety concerns part of the phase 1 first?
Yeah, no, this is a huge hurdle to get over. So the phase 1 studies are done in healthy participants, where we're testing the drug first, again, as you said, looking for safety and tolerability concerns. And we're ecstatic that our drug, Lucid MS, was safe and well tolerated in these healthy participants. The other key thing is that we draw blood in these trials and look at levels of our drug. And we're very pleased with the levels we're seeing. So not only the safety and tolerability are there, but we're seeing adequate levels in the blood that we think would be therapeutic levels with the doses that were used in those trials.
And your CEO Zishan Saeed agrees, because I got a quote from him where it says, "We're excited about the potential of Lucid MS to protect myelin MS patients, as it represents a new direction in the treatment of this disease." So, people don't say things like that lightly. You may say that about whether you think you struck oil somewhere, but this is something that affects people's lives. And I like the fact that you and the company, you're making these bold statements that give people some hope. So how does this great phase 1 now impact and lead you into phase 2? What should investors expect? So obviously investors are watching this, but even people who may not be investors, but they're afflicted with MS, how does this impact you going into phase 2?
So yeah, you're right. Phase 2 is the next major hurdle for us. So that's going to be a trial where we're using Lucid MS in people with multiple sclerosis. So making the jump to looking to see if this can actually prevent disease progression. So, this was a major hurdle getting through phase one. And kind of the next step will be submitting a investigational new drug application with the FDA to get clearance for this phase two. And then, so by doing this phase one, that's an important part of this application, the major hurdle.
How long, a lot of people again don't know, even your own investors, this is new to them. How long does phase two take, and what kind of milestones are you hoping to achieve in phase two that obviously will then propel you into phase three?
Yeah. So yeah, phase two will be in looking for efficacy of our drug in people with MS. Now it's a good question about how long the trial will be. Um, we're still in the process of designing the trial, but the trial may be from 12 to 18 months. And what we would be looking at is MRI markers to show that our drug is in fact preventing this unraveling of myelin and is protecting myelin. We'd also be looking at the people themselves to make sure that see if they're feeling better or not deteriorating. So there'd be both MRI measures and clinical measures in the trial.
How many people would be involved in phase two? So how big of a phase is this?
Yeah, that's something we're still deciding. It could be a trial up to 60 people, 60 to 80 people. Of course, this would be a placebo-controlled trial, so half of the participants would be on placebo, and then half would be receiving our drug,
of course.
and we'd be comparing results with.
So when you say
the two.
60 participants, Doc, do you mean 60 in total, 30 on placebo, 30 on the phase two, or is that 120 in total with 60 actually being tested with the actual phase two drug?
We're thinking more about 60 people in total right now, so it'd be 30 and 30. But again, that's still that's not set in stone at this point. We're still
No, but at least it gives
looking
a
at.
general idea, because a lot of people at
Yeah,
home might be thinking, "Oh, you're going to test this on 1,000 people, or you're going to test it on 10." I
yeah,
remember when I first started figuring, I just assumed, "Oh, wow, they probably test this on 1,000 people if they want to try and help 3 million, right?" But you find out at the end of the day, it's usually this is the number, 50 to
yeah. This would be in the
150. It's
this would be kind of the ballpark for a normal phase two trial in multiple sclerosis, and then you're right. A phase three trial would be thousands of people.
ballpark. Are you able to give us a ballpark of when you'd expect it to be designed out and ready to go? And again, I'm not asking you for a specific date, but a lot of us at home don't know how long it takes to design something like this. Is this a couple of weeks? Is this a couple of months? What ballpark, if you can give us a general idea?
So I think what I could mention is that we're planning to submit this IND application to the FDA at the end of this year, so Q4 2025, and then hoping, with the blessing of the FDA, start the phase two trial in Q1 2026. That would be kind of what we would be shooting for.
Now, because you're applying to the
Yeah,
FDA. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. It seems like you
Well,
want to add something on there.
and what I could just mention right now is that we're obviously planning for the phase two now. So getting experts together, starting to write drafts of the protocol. So it's a long process getting the protocol together, but that would be submitted to the FDA as part of the IND application. And again, that would be Q4 2025.
Because you're applying to the FDA. And by the way, just so people at home know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you could apply to the Canadian regulators, European regulators, FDA. Most people go for FDA because if you get approved there, then it becomes almost universal, correct? So that's why you're applying to the US FDA.
Exactly. Yeah. There would be the key regulatory agency.
And is that where the testing would take place, doctor, with the patients? Would they be American, or could you still do them in Toronto? Because you mentioned earlier that the Genesis came out of Toronto. Could you still do the test here?
Yeah, I think it's a great Canadian story,
Yeah.
just because the molecule was developed here, so it would be terrific to do part of the phase two here. So it's possible. The location for the trial hasn't been set, but it's possible it could be in several different countries. I mean, it would be terrific since it was discovered and developed in Canada, that Canadian people with MS in Canada could also be part of the trial.
Now, obviously, you still have to go through phase 2 and phase 3, but and we don't know until you get through. You don't know, so I want to make sure that's clear for everyone watching or listening at home. But what's your level of confidence at this stage? Is it still too early? Is it a case of, hey, we think we got something here, but we don't know, or are you more a case of we're pretty sure we've got something and we just want to confirm it? What level of confidence do you have that you ultimately will prevail through phase 2 and then, God willing, through phase 3?
Yeah, no, that's another good question. I would say, we're very excited about the potential of this molecule and the preclinical animal models of multiple sclerosis. There were fantastic results. So we're very excited about the opportunities and the potential efficacy that we'll see in people. I think that's about all I can say at this time. We're really hoping that this could be the major breakthrough that we think it can be.
And last question for you. I know obviously all you doctors, especially all of you working on something like MS and things like that. I'm sure you all collaborate together. You talk to each other, see each other at conferences and things like that. What's been the general feedback? Just again, this is more anecdotal, but from other doctors, scientists, people in the space who have looked at your novel approach. What's kind of been the early feedback and reaction, if any?
Yeah. No, so we have presented at American and European conferences. So there's a conference called ACTRIMS in the US, and there's a European conference called ECTRIMS. These are MS conferences where there's thousands of world experts. So we've presented posters there. We've gotten very favorable reviews and excitement about our molecule. This gets back to this idea of the major drugs out there are working on the immune system, trying to block the immune system, but they don't work on neurodegeneration. And so to have a molecule that can impact that component is very exciting for the clinicians out there and researchers. So I'd say we've had tremendous feedback and excitement about our molecule at these conferences.
Well, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone who's watching, listening to this, as investors in the company, we wish you great success because obviously as investors, you want to see a great return on your investment. But I think it's fair to say also as humans, and especially for those who are watching or listening who are also afflicted with MS, we really wish you great success, Doc. And thanks for coming on to talk about this phase 1. You did an amazing job of speaking to everybody, including me, in layman terms, which is just deep enough science to get us to understand what you're doing, but not to make us, go through ChatGPT and say, what did Dr. Krasinski just say there? So I can't wait to have you back on, Doc. And you can tell Zishan that I think you and I might be the better combination here than him and I.
I don't know if I can replace Zishan, but
Uh,
yeah, very excited to be part of this. For me, it's just personally very also exciting to be, developing a molecule that could make such a big difference for so many people with multiple sclerosis. I was actually at when the first drug was given to people in the phase 1. This was the first time the drug was given. I was there, and so that was really cool to be part of that. And then, now as we get into phase 2 and we're treating people, to be part of that, I'm very excited and hoping for the best for this molecule.
yeah, and we agree, and it's great to see the excitement in your face and your voice. That's awesome, and can't wait to have you back on in the future, sir.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
For everyone at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, or your favorite podcast platform to Dr. Andrzej Krasinski. He's the Vice President of Scientific and Clinical Affairs at Quantum Biopharma. Obviously, we couldn't put that all on the Zoom thing there. There wouldn't be enough space. And for everyone at home, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed as much as we did. Make sure to share, like, comment, share this with your networks, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Hey, small cap fam. I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.